Good to go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Finance Committee meeting this evening. We are going to discuss, I'm going to pull up the actual ordinance number so we're not at all curious. Well, we're going to discuss the Skyway project. I'm not able to pull it up right now. Right now, we have with us committee members, Mike O'Brien, Alfredo Ballerin, and Jamel Robinson. We also have with us council members Kathy Fahey, Tom Hoey, Joyce Love, and we have staff members. We've got all of DGS there. They're just in a giant room. Hi, guys. We've got Randy Milano. We have Michelle Andre. We have our Corp Counsel, Marisa. We have Danielle Gillespie. We have John Rafael Pichardo. And if I did not mention him yet, David Gallen is also here with us. So what I would love to do is, I just want to point out that Mike has, and good news, Kelly's about to come in as well, so we'll have another council member. And Joe Igo is coming in too. Mike has a commitment. He has to leave by 7, so I would like it just to make sure that we have a quorum. I would say by 6:45, we should decide what we're going to do in terms of a vote moving, in terms of a vote. So I'll ask committee members, do you guys want to start with questions or should we let staff present it first?
I would say let staff present.
Okay, sounds good. So David, I'm not sure if that's you, but I know that you have a PowerPoint.
I do, but just before we jump into it, I know that Marisa sent an email a couple minutes ago, just clarifying where things are in the process, and we'll turn it over to her first, just so we can all be on the same page as to what we're discussing this evening. You're on mute, Marisa.
Sorry, is that better? Okay, so we've gotten word from DOT. It seems like they've kind of gotten their wires crossed a bit on this one. The Betterment Agreement and the Betterment Agreement resolution, we have been told that we should, quote, throw them in the trash. They were sent to us as sort of like a pro forma, these go with every project agreements. Turns out that this isn't a standard project and it's not subject to the standard DOT agreements that would normally be in place. And the regular Skyway agreement, which we're calling the M&O agreement, maintenance and operation agreement, it incorporates everything that we need to approve, and it supersedes all of the Betterment agreement documents that were sent to us. So I realize that that's confusing at this point, but it actually makes this whole thing a lot more simple, because everything that we need to approve is in that Albany, it's entitled the Albany Skyway Agreement, and it includes the maintenance and operation agreement, as well as all of our funding requirements, as well as the revenue that we're responsible for, that 1.25. It's clear in that agreement that that is what we are on the hook for. So let's try to think about it as a good thing, that we just have that one document to really be drilling down into, and it incorporates everything that DOT is required. And because of the language in the bond ordinance, it's what is before you guys to approve at this point. So I know it's confusing, and I apologize that they were sent out, but they were sent to us, and so we sent them out to you, but you can go ahead and disregard those Betterment Agreement documents.
Okay, so with that, I'll jump right into the presentation just so we can get on to questions as well. Bear with me 2 seconds and I'll share my screen.
Just want to note that Councilmember Conte is joining us as well.
Okay, can everyone see that?
Ginny, did you get me? Did you know that I was here?
I did. Thank you, Judy.
Okay, so we'll hop right into it. And I know you've seen pretty much this version from 2 weeks ago, so I'll keep it very brief. Again, we know that the Skyway is going to serve as a business incubator, a regional attraction, and really be a central component of the Clinton Ave revitalization. It was really the keystone project in the DRI application. It's a project that the governor has highlighted in his State of the State addresses. It's really what the DRI was really focusing on. So we're really excited about it and are looking forward to construction in the near future. Again, just a quick overview of some of the funding sources. We did get, so there's a $3.1 million DOT award, $5 million TAP award from the federal government, 20% of which requires a local match, which is the 1.25 million. And then again, this was about 20% of the DRI funding that the city received. So got to about $1.9 million. And what is all this money going to pay for? It's going to pay for the decommissioning of the ramp, which is new structural repair, sub-base work, electrical work, etc. The modifications to the ramp itself, and then also the installation of the items that are going to make it truly a park: the lighting, the planting, garbage cans, recycling receptacles, etc. But it also includes the gateway, which is what you see in a lot of the renderings. And I'll just go back for 2 slides. That rendering at the very top of the photo array here, that's the gateway. So it's going to create a really welcoming entrance point to the Skyway from Broadway and Clinton Ave. But it also includes work at the Riverfront Park, which is the end of the Skyway, closer to where the barge used to be, closer to the Corning Preserve. So where are we now? We've received approval of the final design report from Federal Highway. We spent a good portion of the summer in the little free time we had negotiating the M&O agreement with DOT. And again, we'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. And then we've presented the M&O agreement to the council, which is part of our conversation this evening. So this map, again, high level overview, but the color coding really breaks down who's responsible for what. For those who can't zoom in to see the colors, purple is City of Albany responsibility solely. The red is a City of Albany Skyway surface responsibility. And then again, the orange is DOT responsibility.
Dave, on my screen, I don't see that. I just
You're not advancing through the.
Presentation mode.
What do you see right now?
I see the
Skyway
first
update.
slide.
First slide.
Skyway update.
It's a pretty slide.
Sorry.
It is a pretty slide.
David, you need to put it in slideshow mode. It's not in slideshow mode.
It's a very rookie mistake. I'm looking at the other screen and it's going through. My apologies. Hold on 1 second. You'd think I'd used a PowerPoint before in my life, but apparently not. 2 seconds here. 2 seconds. What is it doing that? All right. We're gonna come up with a different solution. It's not. I'm just going to make this a little bigger. Do you see the map slide that I'm referring to?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to just try to make this as big as I can. Is that a little better? Okay. So again, the purple is the City of Albany sole responsibility. Red was City of Albany responsibility for the surface area and up in elevation, and the orange is DOT responsibility for the surface under the roadway, what is currently the roadway. And this is just a cross section of the Skyway, and again in very, very small letters. It essentially shows that there is joint responsibility depending on the location, but we'll break that down further in this next slide. So the state's responsible for all maintenance of the superstructure. So there was a big concern last year, and rightfully so, that the city not be on the hook for the responsibility of the superstructure. So as a result of our negotiations with DOT, we were able to ensure that DOT continues to maintain the bridge piers, the abutment, the concrete pedestals, the bearings, essentially everything below that blue line in the chart is DOT responsibility. They're also responsible for portions of the exit ramps that will still connect to the ramp that is going to continue to be a vehicle ramp, which is the Water Street, the portion that comes off of, or excuse me, not off of Water Street, the other side of the ramp from coming northbound, excuse me, coming southbound from the north, the Clinton Ave exit. So they're going to still continue to keep that portion as well, because that is going to continue to be a vehicle thoroughfare. Just briefly into the city's responsibility, we are responsible for the items above the blue line that I showed you earlier. So hardscape, fencing, lighting, benches, landscaping, trees, drainage, and then some of the parapets, the deck itself. So again, the surface, the immediate surface, and up. So anything that really gets added on to the Skyway to make it a park, we're responsible for. And again, the agreement gets to know a bit more specific. It's as to who's responsible for the end of the Skyway that abuts with both the off-ramp to 787 near the gateway, and then also the riverfront park closer to where the barge used to be. And again, we have to maintain, we're also required to maintain the Skyway and complete preventative maintenance to ensure that we're not negatively impacting the superstructure, so that DOT isn't fixing larger issues that could be avoided with preventative maintenance. So again, that's snow removal, ensuring that drainage is clear, the things that DGS is going to be able to take care of in the regular course of maintaining a park like they would with any other park. And so we're just going to get a little bit into more detail about the DOT estimated costs. But before we jumped into the costs, we did have this slide this time around to give you an idea of some of the vegetation that we added to the Skyway. Just want to note here, this vegetation was picked after a pretty rigorous review because of the minimal amount of maintenance required by the city to ensure that this vegetation lives and continues to grow. So we picked grasses that are hardy, that don't require much watering. We picked trees that were going to withstand northeastern winters and also not grow to a large size, so we wouldn't have to continue pruning them. It was all very, very deliberate, and again, in the mindset of ensuring that we are adding as little maintenance costs as possible while still creating an inviting environment between downtown and the riverfront. So again, it works out to about one additional seasonal employee for DGS between April and October. It's about $14,000, $14,500 in labor expenses. And then during the winter, DGS estimates a cost of $150 per 1 to 3 inch snowstorm. So again, very minimal costs especially compared to some of the guesses I was hearing early on. So I just want to re-emphasize, this is not something where we would need an entire crew. This is something where DGS is very comfortable that they could supplement the current crew that works at the Corning Preserve and essentially make this part of that one complex. So they're taking care of the preserve and the Skyway at the same time. But the other thing I want to note too is we committed early on to Councilmember Love and the community that we are going to encourage the creation of a Friends of a Skyway group. There are a number of Friends groups like that in the city. Washington Conservancy is one of them. The Friends of Lincoln Park is another. We really want to encourage ownership by the neighborhood. And so we're going to be encouraging the creation of that group and helping ensure that it's as vibrant and effective as possible. Moving over to the engineering costs. So Randy's estimating approximately $10,000 per year in quarterly inspections through a third-party contractor. And then also we're estimating concrete surface repairs and then a resealing of the concrete deck approximately once every 10 years, but it could be longer. That adds up to about $60,000 total once every 10 years. Again, I want to repeat that. That's about $60,000 total once every 10 years. So about $6,000 a year on average, if you want to break it out for these engineering costs. And then some people have asked about a deck replacement cost for that. Our DOT is going to be undergoing a lot of work as part of this project to ensure that the Skyway itself, the actual structure, is in good shape and can last a long time. And right now, I think the very conservative estimate is that no major work should be required, knock on wood, for at least 20 to 25 years. Keep in mind, this ramp was very underutilized, and hence the reason why we identified it for the Skyway in the first place. There was a very, very low number of vehicles using the Skyway per day. So it was not being, it really wasn't being abused like some other highway ramps across the city. And so the amount of work isn't as drastic as, take for example, what the Henry Johnson Bridge required. And then again, it's going to become a park, so there won't be vehicles on it. It's just going to be people. So we really think that we can stretch that out beyond the 20 to 25 years. But again, it's just a very conservative estimate on engineering's part. So just again, an overview of where we are. So we're asking for the council or asking for the finance committee to move this M&O agreement through the committee with a positive recommendation to put it before the entire council. Our ask is that the council votes on it on September 21st, and assuming that there is a passage by the full body, then the city and state would sign the agreement pretty much immediately thereafter, so we can ensure that we get at least some of the work completed this fall before the winter sets in. And with that, we'll open it up to questions.
Okay, so we will take committee members first. Mike, I see you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got two questions. Do we have a copy of the new draft of the agreement that Marissa referred to? I couldn't find it, so I'd like to get it. And then the other point, and I'd like to have some time to kind of review it. And then the issue about 14,500 being a seasonal item to do maintenance on the bridge. Do we have any, I mean, the state operates a number of urban linear parks. They have one in Amsterdam, Hudson, and Poughkeepsie, and probably in other places too. Do we have any idea of how much money they spend, not on the structural maintenance, but just on the routine maintenance, particularly if it's a bridge with gardens and plantings and, and a surface that has to be cleaned? Because my understanding is the crew at Corning Preserve, which does a nice job, mostly does grass mowing and cleaning the bathrooms and cleaning the parking lot. And this is a different set of tasks. So those are my two questions.
So I don't have, in terms of the actual parks that you're referring to, I don't have maintenance numbers for those other linear parks, but I can say in terms of our linear park, DGS made this estimate based on the square footage that we'd be adding to the park's rotation. I just want to say, Sergio, I know it was a couple of years ago, but when he came to us, part of the reason why we brought him on board was because Sergio is so data oriented and very metric focused. So the estimates are based on square footage, they're based on tasks, they're based on frequency. It's a very, very, he's got a formula for how they ensure that we're cleaning our parks and also how much it's costing us. So,
well, that may be, but the way it was put to us is that it's an extension of the servicing that they're already doing for the Corning Preserve.
right.
And it just seems like a very low number to me. And I thought maybe going to the state of New York, which has some experience in the surface maintaining of these parks, might give us a working number. I mean, obviously the crews that maintain your other parks, this is a totally different type of park.
Yeah.
So, and we haven't seen any of the justification about this projected 14,500 as the only increase in maintenance.
Just so that our logic of thought process is that we normally have 5 people at the Corning Preserve that handle about an average of 13 acres a day. And this would not be any other major input. That's why we said an additional person to during those peak months where people frequent the Skyway would be an addition. That's as far as we see. All it is a marriage of the Corning Preserve and the Skyway together, and we would have 6 people there to manage and handle the park, which it's more than 2 hours.
And the other thing I want to mention too is you're right. This is unlike any other park in the city, but keep in mind, there are no fields to mow. There's no, nothing is being added that isn't already being taken care of, other than we're adding trees and we're adding some grasses in very self-contained environments where actually they're designed so that when it rains, the water is retained in a way so that it can help water the trees and the grass. So, I mean, we're talking about picking up garbage. That is an ad. We're talking about ensuring that, you know, should graffiti be spray painted on the Skyway, that being cleaned up. But we're not, like the grass portion down by the riverfront end of the Skyway is already there. So we're not turning it into a giant field. So it's, you know, we're very confident in the calculation that DGS has provided. We know it comes off as a surprise, but that's part because of the way we've designed the Skyway.
But it might be a good idea just to ask the state of New York, because they must have a lot of experience and good solid numbers, as to what it costs them for the Amsterdam Bridge, which is probably about the same length.
I would also like to add that the Corning Preserve, it is very similar. There's a lot more hardscape at the Corning Preserve with all of what was added with Jennings Landing and all of the area with the pathways, the bike path, you know, the walking paths and all of that, very similar to the hardscapes. You know, it's very similar. So I don't see that it is an extension.
Yeah.
So it's not.
It's a good marriage.
It's a good marriage. It really is.
I just want to point out JR had his hand up, which is usually something useful.
Yeah, I know Councilman O'Brien had brought up like one project that was done in Poughkeepsie, which is the walkway over the Hudson, which my family was closely affiliated. I know the maintenance on that is actually much more substantial than what is being proposed here, because the walkway over the Hudson is much longer because it goes over the entire Hudson. And on top of that, the way the state does is because it's a rail trail, so it goes like almost 3 miles. So just as an apples to orange kind of a thing.
Right, but the Amsterdam Bridge is probably roughly the same length as this one. That crosses the Mohawk. And it's just a pedestrian bridge.
So just keeping an eye on time and the awareness of some of our.
And will Marissa send us a copy of this new agreement? Because I haven't seen it.
No, Mike, it's not a new agreement. It's just the maintenance and operation agreement that was sent previously.
Oh,
Michelle had sent it over a couple of days ago. It's just,
It was all sent together with the Betterment Agreement and the resolution, and it's the same document that you guys have been reviewing for a while now.
oh. Okay.
it says the Albany Skyway Agreement at the top of it, front page.
Judy has a question.
Oh, I have more than one.
Judy has several questions.
So I just want to note that in my time on the council, I think I've approved, or we've discussed, and I think we've approved through the Finance Committee, over $500,000 in repairs on the bridge to the Jennings Preserve, the Jennings Landing. And a lot of that was for concrete work, parapets, etc. Some of it was as a result of what we believe is some substandard concrete that was used. And I assume some of that would be, if that were the case, the state would then pick up. But, I just want to mention that because I appreciate that we're hoping that everything is going to be fine. I know, they're asking us to minimize putting down salt, which deteriorates the concrete. Resurfacing concrete can be a problem. They're requiring us to address, repair, waterproofing membrane as needed, joints, cleaning and painting and scuppers, and etc. That, I think there's, some of that. Here's something I want to say here, however. I think that there's an impression that I don't like the project. It's not that I don't like the project. I like the project. I think that it would be a plus to the city. My concern is allocating scarce resources, which is always an issue in the city and a little bit more important these particular days. I insisted that we, going back 2 years ago, that we get estimates of costs, because that's just what you do when you're approving capital projects. You're supposed to look at the long-term and short-term operational costs. So that's part, part of the goal here is to just lay out what those costs really are so that we're entering this with open eyes. And I think that there are some things that have not necessarily been incorporated into this that I think that we could reasonably expect to result in additional costs. And hopefully if there's any issues with poor materials or poor workmanship, that is something that the city would be able to get the state to step in and correct and that kind of thing. Two things that are not in here is the cost of insurance, which I'm wondering, we're required to carry insurance on this for the state, and also the operation of the pop-up activities, which I note we have festivals in, Alive at 5 and the Tulip Festival, and a lot of those simply have not been money makers and have been costing the city money. So I think in terms of how it's anticipated, we're looking at using this. I think that we need to be looking at that. So I want to let you address those, but I do have questions about how the numbers add up, because it's different than some of what we've been told in the past, and I noted that in an email.
Yeah, and so just to clarify on the numbers, that was part of, in regards to Maurice's clarification at the very beginning, the numbers that didn't add up were part of the Betterment Agreement that were, quote,
That's,
throwing.
no, it's actually from the, one of the attachments here, I think. Yeah, page 32.
You're referring to A, Exhibit A?
Oh,
First referring to Exhibit A, table.
No, page 32 is in the Maintenance and Operation Agreement, and that is the correct document, and those are the correct numbers. That reflects our shares being 1.25, and that is correct. That's the ceiling. of our contribution. It's just 20% of the TAP funds.
Okay, so for the Gateway project, we were supposed to be contributing $150,000 on top of the 1.25. Are we off the hook for that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. And I note that there's a grant for $250,000 from Parks that I don't think was previously in our estimates. One of the things here is, so page 32 says $12.05 million, and we were previously told this was an $11.4 million project total.
Yeah, the total project cost has sort of been a moving target for a while now, and that's partly just because the design team has been meeting on a monthly basis, and that design has been changing. At one point the Gateway wasn't a part of the design, and the plans changed, and it's just sort of been in flux. But what's important is that our share remains the same.
So 1.25 million, I noted to you that there was this provision, or I noted to David that there was this provision that made us on the hook for the balance. And I saw Marissa's comment about that, and I appreciate that this is the way the law works. But when we're authorizing the mayor to enter into this, will she have the authority to spend more than $1.25 million if there are cost overruns? And if so, what do we do about that? And what's our responsibility?
If there are cost overruns, so I guess there's two scenarios we can talk about. Is the project's going out for bid shortly, and our estimates are what they are. They're estimates. So when we get those bids back, for instance, if they came back significantly higher than we had estimated for, we'd have to go back to the drawing board. We'd have to come back to you. We'd have to go back to the state, seek other funding. We'd have to maybe go back to the design team and write some new specs and go out for bid again. We'd have to, because there's no more money authorized. Like, that's it. This is it. So if it happens at a later point in the project, there are increased costs. I guess, pursuant to the charter, the mayor does have certain authorities to enter into certain contracts or to make certain spending allotments with cash on hand. So if it was a nominal amount, I guess she could, as part of her budget proposal, put in funds for increased spending. It's not part of the plan, and we don't have any money to do that. So I think it's kind of an unuseful hypothetical.
Yeah, I think Marisa hit the nail on the head. We'll, no pun intended, but we'll come to that bridge we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But for this conversation, it's kind
So
of.
do you have information on insurance? Do you have,
Yes, I do. Yeah, I spoke to our insurance agent about your question, and his answer was basically that the cost will be de minimis, very minimal. Like, we've added other parks in the past throughout the city, and it doesn't change our policy because we don't insure like per park. If there was a increased incidents or injuries or something as a result of a new park, then that's hard to predict. But there would be negligible increased insurance costs.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I assumed, but I don't like to assume. And I
Absolutely,
think
yeah. I had to call our guy on it, so it was a good question.
I just want to, Judy, I'm guessing you have more questions. I just want to note the time. I think we do actually still have a finance committee quorum, but Mike does need to leave, and you just need to keep an eye on the time so that we still continually have a quorum. And then Judy, when you're done, Alfredo, I see your virtual hand, and you'll be next.
So my only other question was, I've asked questions about Route 9 being rerouted and where it's being rerouted to, and what is the process for approving that, and are there costs associated with that?
So, sorry, I had to unmute myself. The new Route 9, I'm just reading from this letter that we acknowledge the change with DOT, because DOT actually oversees that. The new proposed Route 9 would begin at the existing split of Quay Clinton, following Quay north to Water. It would then follow Water Street south to Orange, Orange Street west to Broadway, and then Broadway north to Clinton, where it currently exists. And we can send you a map, but that is the that would be the rerouting.
And is there a process that do we have to approve that, or is that just the state that does that?
No, the state basically said they needed a letter from us a while back in February, acknowledging the change, but the state handles all of that. We don't handle any of that.
And we're still responsible for maintaining those roads. Those are city roads, and now they're Route 9. I think it's kind of like Route 5 or Route 20, kind of.
I'd have to defer to Randy or Sergio on that. I'm not sure the answer.
Yes, yes,
Correct.
yes.
And as a result of them turning into Route 9, are the conditions of those roads such that we need to prioritize them on repaving?
Now, Judy, the Skyway, when the vehicle traffic on this portion was minimal. It's 2,000 vehicles a day, opposed to Henry Johnson Boulevard Bridge carries over 15,000 vehicles a day. So minimal traffic, minimal impacts.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Alfredo?
I also want a little clarification on numbers. When we look at the table on page 32, it says that our contribution is 1.25. But when you look at the letter that they sent to our engineer, it says that the check needs to be put at Key Bank for 1.5. So I just want to make sure, what's the additional,
Yeah. No, I don't. Maybe you missed my introduction period, but that letter and the Betterment Agreement that it refers to can be disregarded. It actually was sort of a pro forma letter that was sent by a different DOT department, and they sort of had their wires crossed. So that you can disregard that letter and just focus on the M&O agreement.
Okay, so it is 2.5.
It's the 1.25, correct?
Thank you.
I'm not on the committee.
Owusu has had his hand up, and Joe, you'll be next.
First off, I just want to share my excitement for this project. This won't come as a surprise, as I have numerous occasions expressed my support for this project. When you look at a project like this, at this magnitude, the district that is going to, the ward that is going to, I've been in Albany for a couple of years, and I don't remember the last time the state gave $10 million to the city, particularly to make any type of project or any economic development in the third ward or Arbor Hill neighborhood. And right now we have an opportunity in front of us where even in this pandemic, the governor is making a commitment. DOT is making a commitment to invest in the city of Albany, $10 million. This is, I look at this as an equity type of project, right? As a council member representing 10th Ward, I wish I could get $10 million in my district. But the governor and the mayor are making a concentrated effort to make sure that we improve certain communities that have been neglected for years and decades. And I think that, some of my colleagues are talking about fiscal responsibility and fiscal discipline. And look, I get it. I get it. But we have to look at the scope of what this project will mean to that community that have been neglected for years and decades, right? You know, this serves as an incubator, right, for entrepreneurs to actually set up businesses. Right now, you go to any farmers market, those individuals who are not able to open storefronts are relying on farmers markets. If we have the Skyway project, instead of going to Washington Park or Guilderland for a farmers market, you could essentially take your business to the Skyway to try to make some ends meet. This will also improve and encourage individuals from Troy, surrounding neighborhoods, to come into our city to invest. So again, you know, I understand the questions that are being asked. I get it, but at the end of the day, I think it's time to act and support this. You know, quite frankly, one of the biggest projects in the capital region that we have seen in years, and I think that this is going to have a ripple effect as it relates to helping local businesses, local restaurants, local artists, local stores, local vendors. You know, we should not have to travel to Troy and Hudson and Saratoga to reach new markets. You know, we could do it right here in our city. And I think that's what this project is going to be. It's going to be a beacon of hope that individuals could look at the city of Albany Skyway project and say, look, Albany is on a rise. Albany is moving forward. Albany is the place to be, because this is futuristic and it's consistent with, you know, the 2030 plan. So essentially, I just want to, I want to thank my colleagues for all the questions that's been asked. It's really good questions that's being asked. But I think it's time for us to move forward and support this project. I know the councilwoman who represents that district is strongly in favor of this project, and those individuals in those communities. So again, if we say no to this type of project, you know, we're essentially sending money to Buffalo and Rochester, because they would really appreciate this type of project. So I just want to thank everybody for all their questions, and I want to thank my colleagues for supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Joe.
Yes, Judy brought up a point that's got me wondering. She was talking about in deterioration, okay? Would the state step in, make the corrections? It brought to mind the pedestrian bridge to Jennings Landing. And the question for Randy is, when, and I don't know, it was about 8 years ago, things started deteriorating. We had to put a lot of money into it. It was a bad mix of concrete. Now, I don't know how this is written to correct something like that. Randy?
Yeah, so there was no issues with the workmanship or the materials at the time of construction.
Right.
What occurred on the waterfront pedestrian bridge was an alkali silica reaction in the concrete, which the aggregate that was used reacted with the cement and the other mixtures. Basically what ended up happening, it's very complicated, technical, but that aggregate came from an approved DOT source. Really what ends up happening is that concrete starts failing from the interior. It turns into a gel, it pushes out, and we started getting spalling concrete on that.
I knew that, okay, but it was a DOT approved, and years after, we were on the hook for it, correct?
That, yes, it was our responsibility.
So if something like that happened again, it would be rolled back on us.
Yeah, but that bridge, the construction time and everything, if there were issues with this bridge, that would have shown up decades ago.
Okay, but we aren't adding anything to it in the concrete pillars or anything like this that would.
And that was one of the big issues that the city had with what was originally proposed is the city, and that's why the agreement is basically the city's responsible for the deck and above.
Okay.
And there's no deferred maintenance on this. Anything that's been identified as an issue from the most recent structural inspection of the bridge is all being addressed and taken care of as part of this project. So again, when you do a rehab on a structure of this nature, there's really 20, 25 years you wouldn't anticipate of having really any significant issues whatsoever.
I don't think we anticipated it down there either, but it happened, and I know it's a different thing, but I'm just concerned if there's anything else similar to that.
Yeah.
I'm for the project. I just had that concern when it was brought up. Thank you.
Yeah. You know, it's comparable. Henry Johnson Boulevard Bridge was built in the same time period. the city's put about $1.2 million into that bridge. The majority of that we received federal aid for, and that's over the life span of that bridge at this point is about 50 years. So in 50 years, the city's invested 1.2 million, most of it federal aid. So
Thank you, Randy.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Next, we have Tom, then DJ, then Kathy. And I still keeping an eye on the time, so.
Real fast, I just have a few comments and a couple of questions. David, when you showed the numbers and you were predicting 20 years down, I don't know if it said 30 years, but you really didn't take into account inflation, and nobody knows what the inflation rate will be. So that cost that you're showing 20 years from now could actually be a lot more if we get hit with hyperinflation. As you know, the federal government is printing money faster than anything, and I think we will be hit at some point. So that's just a comment that, you know, I understand, you know, that's one of the things inflation is, you can predict maybe a few years down the road, but, you know, 10 years, 20 years, it gets kind of difficult. I have two questions, and one would be for Randy, and then one probably for you, David. My big concern was when I read the agreement from a few weeks ago, and I haven't had a chance to really comb through the newest documentation. The state had said that if we don't keep up with the maintenance, that we own the bridge. And I think what I saw on one of your slides is that if we don't keep up with the maintenance, we're going to have to work with the state to do it. Is that, you know, that's my big concern. And then my second question would be for Randy, can we keep up with the maintenance, keeping the drains clean? Do we have men that are trained? Now, you mentioned Henry Johnson. I guess we take care of that. So there are my two big questions. I appreciate it.
No problem. Yeah, Councilman, just to speak to that first question, the slide, and I'll just read it off. We would have to pay a prorated share of any repairs that the state has to perform as a result of the city's failure to undertake any maintenance for which the city is responsible. So the hypothetical that was used was, let's say someone goes on the Skyway, they cut the fence that's on the Skyway, so the fence is dangling, and then the state calls us and says, hey, you have X amount of hours to fix it, and if you don't, we're gonna fix it and we're gonna bill you for it. That's one example of a hypothetical that could happen, where we would be on the hook should the state have to step in and maintain a part of the Skyway essentially on our behalf. But we did, I know you did raise one other concern earlier on, and I know we had the language changed, but something off topic that you didn't mention about the overages. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't know if you saw that or not, but I did want to note it. And then I'll let Randy talk about the second question.
Before you go though, are we on the hook if, say, there was a major failure with one of the piers, and would we be on the hook for that if the state said, well, you didn't maintain the drainage and the water came down and the cement broke, and is that our responsibility then?
Essentially what would happen is they'd have to show it's our responsibility. It would really just be a question of fact. So it really is all hypothetical, but it would result in us getting an engineer, getting a third-party engineer and drilling down as to who's responsible for what and what might have caused whatever.
Yeah, well, yes, but keep in mind that we're never on the hook for structural or superstructure maintenance. So the example David gave was the more likely thing. It would be a damaged fence that was causing a hazard to the roadway below, because we're responsible for those surface elements only.
Okay, and Marissa, what I had read a few weeks ago was if we didn't keep up with it, we would own the whole structure, the maintenance on it. You guys had
No, that's not correct. It's if there is damage due to our lack of performing our maintenance responsibilities, then we're on the hook to fix them. But our maintenance responsibilities are limited to the surface of the structure.
Thank you. And Randy,
Next up, DJ.
I did have a follow through with Randy.
I'm sorry. Yes. Sorry, DJ.
Yes. We're required to do quarterly inspections and provide those to DOT. So any issues that arise from that, those inspections that we see, we're going to be there and we're going to be able to address those. It's also DOT's responsibility every 2 years to do a structural inspection. So the likelihood of something major going wrong is pretty slim, because we're out there every 3 months and DOT's out there every 2 years.
Okay, my question, Randy, was do our workers have the training to do the cleaning of the drains and making sure that the bridge is in good shape? That was my big question I wanted from you.
Yeah, some of those issues would be addressed by a maintenance contract, very similar to we do roofing maintenance, elevators, masonry, plumbing, all those maintenance agreements that we have. So we would be looking to get a maintenance contractor on there to do that. DGS doesn't have the expertise or the staff or the resources to do that. No, those costs would be minimal.
And that would come out of your budget then, the maintenance on it? Like to hire an outside company, that would be part of your budget?
Those maintenance contracts are typically under DGS's budget, but we would address that.
Thank you.
Some of those contracts that Randy is talking about are already existing. That we have plumbing contracts, we have with experts that could handle it. Some of the contract, that's why the cost is very minimal. We have electrical contractors, we have plumbing contractors, we have masonry contractors. So for the maintenance, regular maintenance, those contracts would suffice, a very minimum cost.
Excellent. So I think DJ, you're up.
Thank you. So as I listen and I hear a lot of minimal projections, but I also hear that if things don't go the way it's supposed to, that we could be responsible for more. And, I've never been big on this project. And when I hear $10 million invested in the community, I'm sure that if you talk to that community, it's a number of other projects that are more pressing and near and dear to their hearts. So to use the fact that a community has been neglected for so long, and then dangle a dollar sign on a project that is not going to be received in the same manner to the direct communities surrounding this project, it's just concerning. And at this time, we just went through COVID, and COVID prevented us from doing our normal maintenance on our own city parks. And it just makes me wonder how we can say that we're adding additional park on, and it's only going to be a part-time salary. And just being realistic about it. We've had situations with this administration that they make projections and the projections never materialize in the manner that they're presented. And so they should expect pushback and, concern moving forward with a project like this. So I just, I'm not satisfied with what has been presented as far as the price that we would have to incur to try to keep this park maintained. So I just want to go on record to state that the words that was used to describe this project and the excitement that that was mentioned, I don't feel it and I don't hear it and I don't see it when I talk to the people in those communities. So thank you.
Kathy?
Thank you. I do appreciate everyone raising concerns about maintenance costs and any potential maintenance costs, absolutely. And the concern raised about scarce resources. But I think, you know, from what I have heard, I mean, once again, $10 million, very difficult to turn that down. And my understanding is that there's projects that have already spun off from this exciting project, the Skyway project. So maybe you could take a minute, David or someone else, to talk a little bit about that, some of the things that revenue producing projects that are in the works as a result of this exciting thing that's going to be happening downtown.
Sure. And just one thing before I even get into that, just as a reminder, the TAP award it's a transportation award. It's specifically for taking roadway offline and converting it to parks. So there's a very limited scope as to what we could use the TAP funding for. But the Skyway, and I know I don't want to beat a dead horse, but back in, I don't remember, it was December or January now, when we had the original vote on the bonding, I know we had a number of folks from the business and the development community and Assemblymember Fahey come to public comment at the council meeting and talk about how the Skyway was a direct driver in investment in downtown, including by Jeff Buell and Redburn Development. There's a number of buildings that were have been renovated, have 80% occupancy now. People are moving downtown at record numbers, and it's driving investment into the city. It's driving investment into the region, and it's also the improvements that are made as a result of these redevelopments is also helping drive up the it'll help drive up the assessments. It'll help drive up tax revenue. It's going to help drive sales tax revenue. It's going to help drive events. It's an economic stimulator like none other anywhere between here and Poughkeepsie, essentially. So we're going to see the effects of this for decades to come, and I think it's going to be a very exciting project once it is all said and done. I know we wanted to open it at the end of 2021, and the longer we wait, the longer that's the further and further that's in reach. But whether it's the end of 2021 or the beginning of 2022, we're really excited for this project to come online and be able to open it and make it available to the community.
Go ahead, Joyce.
Yeah. Now, I just want to say that I support this project. I've been in talk with the mayor, Dave Gatlin, since I decided to support this. And my community supports it also. And I'm in my community at least 5-6 days a week. And my community support me on this because it's an opportunity for jobs that they have promised me. And I'm asking the committee, the council, to support me on this.
So with that, and with no further questions, could I get a motion?
Just before you do that, council member, I just want to remind everyone we have to it would have to be a motion for the amended resolution that Marisa sent over.
Right.
So Joyce, was that a motion?
I'm on
a committee.
Oh, sorry.
Not on the committee. That's why I didn't say anything.
From a committee member.
So essentially, it's a motion to move it forward with a positive recommendation as amended.
Yes.
Well,
I'll make the motion to move it forward
thank you.
as amended.
Second.
And all those in favor, committee members?
Aye.
Aye. That's Ballerin, Robinson, Farrell in the affirmative. Any abstentions or negatives?
I'm abstaining.
And an abstention from Councilmember Deshay. That is all we have this fine evening. Thank you guys all so much, and thank you very much, staff, for all the work that you put into this. And huge shout out to my finance committee members. I appreciate all of you guys a lot, and appreciate the time that you'll be putting in very soon. So thank you.
Thank you for making this possible, given
Can't
everything.
wait for the ribbon cutting.
Can I say?
Okay.
Oh,
Okay, Awusa.
Joyce, I hope you invite me.
You're invited.
Thank you.
You can speak also.
Oh my.
Yeah, short though. But
Good night, everybody.
I was just gonna say, in the future, can we make sure we're asked to go through documentation that's gonna count? A lot of time going through those files.
Yeah.
And reading all those agreements and so forth, and then find out doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree. That was
A lot of time spent that I would have rather been spent in a different way. So
I completely agree, and definitely will do my best. And I apologize for that.
no, it's just, it's a lot of documents.
We're going to be reading a lot for finding.
I know.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Not going to get better.